narrative.
You know that feeling when you can see a train wreck coming from miles away, but there's nothing you can do to stop it? That was me, watching my wife get ready for what she called a girls' night out, but what I knew would be another excuse to act single. The argument started around 6 that evening. She was in the bedroom, pulling out clothes that got shorter and tighter every time she planned one of these nights. I walked in to grab my phone charger and saw her holding up a dress that barely qualified as fabric. Really? That's what you're wearing to dinner with the girls? She spun around, already defensive. What's wrong with it? Nothing, if you're 22 and trying to get attention from college guys. Her face flushed. I'm 31 years old. I can wear whatever I want. You can. But we're married. There's a difference between looking nice and looking available. That's when the volume went up. She threw the dress on the bed and crossed her arms. Available? Are you serious right now? I'm going out with Brittany and Madison. We're having dinner and maybe a few drinks. Brittany and Madison. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The same Brittany who's been divorced twice and thinks marriage is a prison sentence. The same Madison who cheats on her boyfriend every weekend. They're my friends. They're toxic. And every time you hang out with them, you come home acting like you're single. She grabbed her phone from the dresser and started typing furiously. I'm texting them right now. We're definitely going out tonight. I'm not stopping you. I'm just saying I don't like it. Well, guess what? I don't need your permission to live my life. There it was. The line that told me everything I needed to know about where we stood. I sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at her, really looked at her. When did we get here? When did my wife decide that being married meant nothing? You're right, I said quietly. You don't need my permission, but I don't have to like it. And I don't have to pretend this is normal. She was applying lipstick in the mirror now, the kind of red that screamed for attention. You're being dramatic. It's just one night. It's never just one night with them. Last time you went out with Brittany and Madison, you didn't come home until 4 in the morning. The time before that, you lost your wedding ring and didn't even notice until the next afternoon. I found it. In your purse. After spending the night doing what exactly? She turned around, and I could see the anger building in her eyes. Nothing happened. I danced with some people. I had fun. Remember fun? That thing we used to have before you became the marriage police. The marriage police. I stood up. Is that what you call it when your husband cares about his wife making smart choices? Smart choices. She laughed, but it was bitter. Like marrying someone who wants to control every move I make. That stung, but I kept my voice level. Control? I work 50 hours a week to keep this house running while you spend your days deciding which friends' drama to get involved in. I cook dinner 3 nights a week. I do the grocery shopping. I pay the bills. And asking you to act like you're married is control. There it is. Poor you, working so hard while your terrible wife wants to have a social life. A social life? You mean getting drunk with women who hate their own relationships and want you to hate yours too? She grabbed her purse from the chair. I'm done with this conversation. I'm going out. I'm going to have fun. And if you have a problem with that, maybe you should think about why your wife doesn't want to spend her Friday night at home with you. The words hit like a slap, but instead of getting angry, something cold settled in my chest. Clarity. She wanted to play games? Fine. But she was going to learn that I don't play games I can't win. Have fun, I said. But remember something. Every choice has consequences. She was already walking toward the door. Whatever that means. It means exactly what it sounds like. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I heard her car start, the engine revving harder than necessary, and then the sound faded as she drove away. I stood in our bedroom, looking at the mess she'd left behind. Clothes everywhere, makeup scattered across the dresser, her wedding ring sitting in a small dish next to her perfume bottles. She'd taken it off to get ready and forgotten to put it back on. Again, I picked up the ring and held it up to the light. White gold, with a small diamond we'd picked out together 6 years ago. Back when she looked at me like I was her future instead of her prison warden. My phone buzzed. A text from her. Don't wait up. I set the ring back in the dish and plugged in my phone to charge. Then I brushed my teeth, turned off all the lights, and went to bed. If she wanted to act single, she could come home to a house that felt like it. But as I lay there in the dark, I knew something had shifted tonight. She'd drawn a line, and I was tired of pretending it didn't exist. Whatever happened next, she was going to learn that marriage is a partnership, not a hall pass. And partnerships end when one person stops participating. The buzzing started at 3:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone when the noise pulled me out of sleep. The screen was bright in the dark room, showing a text message from my wife. Even half asleep, I could tell something was off about it. The words were all lowercase, no punctuation, the kind of typing you do when you're drunk and trying to prove a point. I don't need your permission to live my life. And guess what? I'm having genuine fun with my friends, something I forgot how to do living with you. I sat up in bed and read it again. Then I read it a third time, fully awake now. She was drunk, obviously, but drunk words are sober thoughts, and her sober thoughts were telling me everything I needed to know about our marriage. My phone buzzed again. Brittany and Madison are amazing friends who actually support me, unlike some people, and we're having the time of our lives. Then another one. You should see how happy I am right now. This is what freedom feels like. I stared at the messages for a full minute. 6 years of marriage, and this is what it came down to. My wife, drunk at 3 a.m., texting me from some bar or club to tell me how much happier she was without me. The funny thing was, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of being treated like the enemy in my own marriage. Tired of pretending this was fixable. I typed my response carefully, reading it twice before hitting send. Then stopped needing my house to come home to. The moment I sent it, I knew there was no taking it back. I'd just drawn my own line in the sand, and it was deeper than hers. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand and tried to go back to sleep. But my mind was too clear now. I kept thinking about the look on her face when she'd left earlier, the way she'd said, "Maybe you should think about why your wife doesn't want to spend her Friday night at home with you." Like our problems were all my fault. Like I was the one who'd forgotten what marriage meant. The phone started buzzing again, and again, and again. I ignored it. After about 10 minutes, the buzzing stopped. Then it started up again, this time with the longer vibration pattern of a phone call. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, another voicemail. I picked up the phone and put it on silent mode. The screen kept lighting up with incoming calls, but at least I couldn't hear them anymore. Call after call after call. 23 missed calls by the time she finally gave up. But she didn't give up on the voicemails. My phone showed 12 new messages. I almost deleted them without listening, but curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to know what my wife's authentic reaction was when she realized I wasn't playing her games anymore. The first voicemail was pure panic. Her voice was shaky, and I could hear loud music and people talking in the background. "Pick up the phone. Please. We need to talk about this." I didn't mean just pick up. The second one was more desperate. "This is insane. You can't just, we're married. Married people don't say things like that. Call me back right now." By the third message, the desperation was turning into anger. "Are you seriously not going to answer? This is childish. We had a fight, so what? Couples fight. You don't say things like that. Grow up and call me back." The fourth message was pure rage. "You know what? Fine. Be immature. This is exactly why I needed a night out. You can't handle one honest conversation without acting like a child. I'm not coming home tonight just to deal with your attitude." I had to laugh at that one. She was calling me immature while drunk, texting me at 3 a.m. about how much fun she was having without me. But the next few messages told a different story. "Okay, I'm calm now. Let's talk about this like adults. I may have said some things I didn't mean, but you said some things too. We both need to apologize and move on." Then, "The girls think you're just trying to scare me. They said guys do this all the time when they feel threatened. But I know you better than that, right? You're not actually. You wouldn't actually kick me out over one fight." The desperation was creeping back into her voice with each message. "I love you. You know I love you. I needed some space to breathe. That doesn't mean I don't want to be married to you. It just means I needed one night to feel like myself again." The last message was different, quieter, like she'd moved away from the noise. "I'm scared. I think I messed up. But you messed up too. We both said things we didn't mean. Please don't make any decisions tonight. We'll figure this out tomorrow when we're both thinking clearly." I deleted all the voicemails without saving them. Then I got up, went to the kitchen, and made myself a cup of coffee. It was almost 4 a.m. now, but I knew I wasn't going back to sleep. My mind was too busy processing what had just happened. She'd spent the evening telling her friends how terrible her marriage was. She'd texted me drunk nonsense about freedom and happiness. But the moment I stopped playing along with her drama, she panicked. Because she knew. Deep down, she knew she was wrong. But knowing you're wrong and being willing to change are two different things. and I was tired of being the only one willing to do the work. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and looked around the house we'd built together. 6 years of shared meals, shared bills, shared dreams. But somewhere along the way, she'd stopped seeing it as ours and started seeing it as mine. My house, my rules, my problem when she decided to act single. Well, if that's how she wanted to play it, then that's exactly how it would be. I finished my coffee, washed the cup, and went back to bed. This time, I slept like a rock. I found out later what happened on her end that night. Not from her, but from Madison, who couldn't keep her mouth shut when the drama got too good to keep private. The moment my wife read my text, everything changed. She was standing near the bar with Brittany and Madison, probably 3 or 4 drinks deep, feeling invincible the way drunk people do. According to Madison, she'd been bragging all night about how she'd finally told her controlling husband where he could stick his opinions. But when she saw my response, the color drained from her face. Then stopped needing my house to come home to. Madison said she read it out loud twice, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Then she just stood there, staring at her phone, while the reality of what just happened hit her. "What did he say?" Brittany asked, trying to look over her shoulder. My wife showed them the message. Both of them laughed it off immediately. "He's bluffing," Madison said. "Guys always say dramatic stuff like that when they're mad. He'll be fine by tomorrow." "Totally," Brittany agreed. "He's just trying to scare you. Men hate when women have fun without them." But my wife wasn't laughing. She was starting to sober up fast, the way fear can cut through alcohol like a knife. She hit the call button, straight to voicemail. She tried again, and again, and again, 23 times. With each unanswered call, she got more frantic. Madison said people at the bar started staring because she was pacing back and forth, practically shouting into her phone. The voicemails started desperate and got worse from there. I heard them all, remember? The panic, then the anger, then back to panic. She was cycling through every emotion except the one that mattered, accountability. "This is insane," she kept saying to Brittany and Madison between calls. "He can't just kick me out over a text message." "He's not kicking you out," Brittany said. "He's having a tantrum. Let him cool off." But my wife knew better. She knew me. She knew I don't make threats I'm not prepared to follow through on. That's probably what scared her the most. By the time she left the 8th voicemail, other people at the bar were definitely watching the show. A drunk woman having a meltdown over her phone isn't exactly subtle entertainment. "You know what?" Madison finally said, grabbing my wife's arm. "Forget him. This is exactly what we've been talking about. This guy is toxic. He's trying to control you even when you're not home. Look at yourself," Brittany added. "You're letting him ruin your entire night. A good husband wouldn't do that." Madison nodded. A good husband would trust his wife to have a girl's night without making it into some big drama. And there it was. The poison they've been feeding her all along. Turn everything around. Make him the villain. Make her the victim. My wife looked at her phone again. Still no response from me. Still no sign that I was going to back down and play along with the usual script. "Maybe," she started, and Madison said you could hear the doubt in her voice. "Maybe this is too much. I mean, I still love him. We've been together 6 years." "Love?" Brittany laughed. "Honey, love doesn't come with a leash. When's the last time he made you feel the way you felt tonight before all this started? When's the last time you felt free?" Madison added. My wife went quiet for a minute, thinking. The alcohol was still working on her judgment, and her friends were working on her emotions. "Come on," Madison said. "Let's get another round. One more drink to clear your head, and then we'll figure out your next move." "My next move? Well, you can't go home tonight, can you? Not after what he said. You go back now, and you're basically admitting he was right to threaten you." Brittany nodded. "You need to show him you're not going to be pushed around." One more drink turned into 3 more drinks. And somewhere around closing time, Madison introduced my wife to Connor, some 25-year-old she'd been flirting with all night. "Connor's got a friend," Madison said with a grin. "And I've got a couch if you need somewhere to crash tonight." My wife hesitated. Even drunk, even angry, even surrounded by people telling her to burn her marriage down, some part of her knew this was the point of no return. "I don't know," she said. "That seems like what? Like having fun? Like being an adult who makes her own choices?" Connor's friend turned out to be Jake, another baby-faced kid who probably thought buying drinks for married women was the height of sophistication. He kept complimenting my wife's dress, the same dress I'd called inappropriate earlier that evening. See, Madison whispered in her ear. Some guys appreciate when a woman takes care of herself. By 2 a.m., they were all piled into Madison's car. My wife in the passenger seat, Madison driving despite being in no condition to operate a vehicle, Brittany and the two guys in the back seat making out like teenagers. Madison's apartment was exactly what you'd expect from a woman whose idea of relationship advice was burn it all down. Dirty dishes everywhere, empty wine bottles on every surface, and a couch that had seen better decades. Make yourselves comfortable, Madison announced, immediately disappearing into her bedroom with Connor. That left my wife alone with Jake on the couch. He kept trying to put his arm around her, kept offering to help her forget about her problems. But even drunk, even angry, even convinced by her friends that I was the villain in this story, she couldn't do it. Every time Jake got too close, she pulled away. I'm married, she kept saying. So, Jake replied, your husband obviously doesn't appreciate you. But she couldn't cross that line. Not yet, anyway. She spent the night on Madison's couch, fully clothed, pushing away a 25-year-old who thought her wedding ring was just a suggestion. Meanwhile, I was sleeping peacefully in our bed, having made the cleanest decision of my adult life. She didn't cheat that night, but that wasn't the point. The point was that she'd chosen her friend's advice over her marriage. She'd chosen the drama over coming home and working things out. She'd chosen to spend the night at another man's apartment rather than face the consequences of her actions. And when you make choices like that, you don't get to act surprised when your husband stops playing along. I woke up Saturday morning with absolute clarity. No doubt, no second guessing, no wondering if I'd been too harsh. Just the calm certainty that comes when you finally stop fighting a battle you should have walked away from months ago. My wife's side of the bed was still empty. Her car wasn't in the driveway. After 6 years of marriage, she'd chosen to spend the night somewhere else rather than come home and face what she'd done. That told me everything I needed to know. I made coffee, scrambled some eggs, and sat at the kitchen table to plan my next move. No drama, no emotional outbursts, just practical steps to handle a situation that had already been decided for me. First, I gathered evidence. Screenshots of her text messages from the night before, the call log showing 23 missed calls, the voicemails I deleted, but which were still saved in my recently deleted folder. All of it painted a pretty clear picture of abandonment and hostile behavior. Then I called Patterson, Fletcher & Associates. I'd looked them up months ago during one of our previous fights, back when I was still hoping things would get better. Now I was grateful for that moment of preparation. I need to speak with someone about filing for divorce, I told the receptionist. Certainly. Mr. Fletcher has an opening at 10:30 this morning if that works for you. It worked perfectly. I showered, put on my best shirt and tie, and drove to their office. No point in looking like a man whose life was falling apart. I was a man making a business decision. Fletcher turned out to be exactly what I needed. Competent, direct, and completely uninterested in the emotional drama of failed marriages. He looked at my evidence, asked practical questions, and laid out my options. Based on what you're showing me, we can file on grounds of abandonment, he said. She left the marital home after sending hostile communications and refused to return. That's textbook abandonment in this state. How long does the process take? Depends on whether she contests it. If she agrees to mediation, we could have this wrapped up in 60 days. If she wants to fight, he shrugged. Could be 6 months or more. And the house. You said it's in your name only, right? I bought it 2 years before we got married. Then it's yours. She might try to claim some equity based on improvements during the marriage, but given the abandonment issue, that's unlikely to succeed. We spent an hour going through the details. Division of assets, which wasn't complicated since most everything significant was in my name. Spousal support, which was minimal given her employment history and the circumstances of the separation. I'll have the papers drawn up by Monday morning, Fletcher said as I was leaving. Do you want us to serve them, or would you prefer to handle that yourself? I'll handle it. I stopped at Home Depot on the way back and bought new locks for the front and back doors. Not because I was worried about her taking anything, but because I was done sharing my space with someone who'd made it clear she didn't want to be there. The locksmith finished his work around 3 in the afternoon. By then, I'd already boxed up most of her personal items and left them by the front door. Not her clothes or important documents, just the decorative stuff she was always buying. The throw pillows that cost $40 each. The candles that supposedly transformed the energy of our living room. The pictures of her and her friends that she insisted on displaying in our bedroom. I wasn't being cruel. I was being efficient. Around 4, I got a text from Madison. She's ready to come home and talk. I didn't respond. An hour later, my wife's car pulled into the driveway. I watched from the living room window as she sat in her car for a full 5 minutes, probably trying to work up the courage to face me. When she finally got out, she looked exactly like someone who'd spent the night drinking and sleeping on a stranger's couch. She tried her key in the front door. When it didn't work, she tried it again. Then she knocked. "It's me," she called through the door. "My key isn't working." I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She looked surprised to see me dressed in a button-down shirt and slacks instead of my usual weekend clothes. "Did you change the locks?" she asked. "I did." "Why would you?" She stopped, noticing the boxes behind me. "What is all that?" "Your things." The color drained from her face. "What do you mean, my things?" I stepped aside so she could see the boxes clearly. "Your decorations. Your candles. Your pictures. The stuff that belongs to you. This is my house too." "Is it?" She stared at me, and I could see her trying to figure out if I was bluffing. "Can I come in? We need to talk." "Actually, we don't." I reached behind the door and pulled out the manila envelope Fletcher had prepared. "These are for you." Her hands shook as she took the envelope. "What is this?" "Divorce papers." The word hit her like a physical blow. She actually took a step backward. "Divorce papers? Over one fight. Over one fight." I almost laughed. "This isn't about one fight. This is about you texting me at 3 in the morning to tell me how much happier you are without me. This is about you choosing to spend the night somewhere else rather than come home to your husband. This is about you deciding that marriage is something you do when it's convenient." She was opening the envelope with trembling fingers. "This is insane. People don't get divorced over arguments. People get divorced when one person abandons the marriage, which is exactly what you did." I didn't abandon anything. I stayed at Madison's house for one night. After telling me you don't need my permission to live your life and that you're happier without me. After refusing to come home and work things out like adults. After choosing your friend's drama over your marriage. She pulled out the papers and stared at them. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. But I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love having someone to pay the bills while you figure out how to be happy. But you don't love me enough to respect our marriage." Tears were starting now. "That's not true. I made a mistake. I was drunk. I said things I didn't mean. You meant every word. And more importantly, you acted on those words. You chose to leave. You chose not to come home. You chose your friends over your family. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work it out." I shook my head. "I'm done working on a relationship where I'm the only one doing the work." She looked at the boxes again, then back at me. "So that's it. 6 years of marriage, and you're just throwing it away?" "I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that when you decided acting single was more important than being married." The tears were flowing freely now. "Please, just give me another chance. I'll change. I'll stop hanging out with them. I'll do whatever you want. I don't want you to do whatever I want. I want you to want to be married to me, and you've made it clear that you don't." I stepped back into the house. "You have 30 days to respond to the papers. My attorney's information is in there. Where am I supposed to live? That's not my problem anymore." I closed the door and turned the new lock. She stood on the porch for another 10 minutes, crying and occasionally knocking. But I didn't answer. I'd said everything I needed to say. Eventually, I heard her loading the boxes into her car, then the sound of her engine starting and silence. I poured myself a bourbon, sat in my recliner, and enjoyed the peace of a house that was finally mine again. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The next month was a masterclass in how quickly bad decisions compound into disasters. While I was adjusting to my new routine, my wife was learning what freedom actually costs when you don't have a stable home to fall back on. Madison's couch turned out to be about as comfortable as you'd expect from someone whose idea of interior decorating was whatever fits between the empty bottles. My wife found herself sleeping on a piece of furniture that probably predated the Clinton administration, in an apartment that smelled like stale cigarettes and regret. Madison, of course, was thrilled to have a roommate to validate her lifestyle choices. Every night was party night. Every conversation was about how terrible men were and how much better life was without toxic relationships. Every morning was damage control from whatever chaos they'd created the night before. My wife tried to find work. But 6 years of being a part-time retail employee with gaps in her resume didn't exactly make her a hot commodity in the job market. The few interviews she got didn't go well, probably because she looked like someone who'd been sleeping on a couch and living off gas station coffee. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I sold her car, which was in my name since she'd never been able to qualify for financing on her own. That gave me enough to pay off the remaining balance and put some extra cash in my savings account. I sold most of the furniture we'd bought together, keeping only what I actually needed. Turned out I didn't need a dining room table that seated 8 when I was the only one eating there. Didn't need a king-size bed when I was perfectly comfortable in a queen. Didn't need 2 TVs or 3 sets of dishes, or any of the decorative nonsense she'd insisted was essential for making a house feel like a home. I kept the house clean without someone constantly leaving messes behind. I cooked whatever I wanted without hearing complaints about carbs or calories. I watched what I wanted on TV without negotiating through someone else's reality show addiction. For the first time in years, I remembered what it felt like to live in my own space. My attorney called every few days with updates. She'd hired a lawyer, some guy who specialized in fighting for women's rights in divorce proceedings. Apparently, he'd convinced her she was entitled to half of everything, including the house. How's that working out for her? I asked Fletcher. About as well as you'd expect. Her attorney's filing motions, but abandonment is abandonment. She left the marital home after hostile communications and refused to return. There's not much room for interpretation there. And the spousal support? She's asking for $1,500 a month. We're offering 0 based on the abandonment and her employment history. My guess is we'll settle somewhere around $300 for a year max. $300 a month was less than I used to spend on her shopping trips. I could live with that. But my wife was discovering that living with Madison came with costs she hadn't considered. Madison's idea of splitting expenses was, we'll figure it out later, which meant my wife was covering groceries, utilities, and most of the rent while Madison spent her money on clothes and bar tabs. It got worse when Madison decided my wife needed to get back out there and start dating. You're free now, Madison kept saying. You should be celebrating, not moping around like someone died. My marriage died. Your prison sentence ended. There's a difference. Madison started inviting guys over every night. Different guys. Sometimes multiple guys. Sometimes guys who brought friends who expected my wife to be as available as Madison was. The apartment became a revolving door of 20-something losers who thought buying cheap wine was the same thing as having a personality. Guys who left their mess everywhere and treated my wife like she was part of the entertainment package. She called me once during this period. I let it go to voicemail. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. About everything. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. And I know you probably won't believe this, but I miss you. I miss our life. I miss our house. I miss feeling safe. I deleted the message without saving it. 2 weeks later, she called again. I've been thinking about what you said. About me not wanting to be married. You were right. I was taking everything for granted. I thought I could have it both ways, but I can't. No one can. I messed up, and I know that now. I deleted that one too. The third call came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. There are people here I don't know. Madison brought home some guys, and they're drunk and they won't leave. One of them keeps trying to get into the bathroom when I'm in there. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I listened to that message twice before deleting it. Because here's the thing about consequences. They don't care about your regrets. She'd made her choice when she decided Madison's advice was worth more than her marriage. She'd made her choice when she decided to stay out all night, instead of coming home to work things out. She'd made her choice when she laughed off my concerns about her friends. Now she was living with those choices, and I was living with mine. I changed my phone number the next day. Fletcher could handle any communication related to the divorce. Everything else was no longer my responsibility. By the end of the month, my life had found a new rhythm. I worked my regular schedule, came home to a peaceful house, cooked dinner for one, and watched whatever I wanted on TV. I joined a gym and started running again. I called my brother more often. I read books instead of listening to complaints about my reading habits. I wasn't lonely. I was content. My wife, according to Madison's social media posts that I occasionally checked, was learning what instability felt like when it became your daily routine instead of your weekend adventure. But the real lesson was still coming. The final blow came on a Thursday morning in late November. Madison had been acting strange for a few days, making mysterious phone calls and avoiding eye contact. My wife, who'd been living on that couch for over a month now, was starting to notice that even her best friend's patience had limits. The apartment had become a disaster zone. Empty bottles everywhere, takeout containers growing things that probably belonged in a science lab, and a revolving door of random guys who treated the place like their personal frat house. My wife had been trying harder to find work, finally realizing that her part-time retail experience wasn't going to cut it in the adult world. She'd been to a dozen interviews, but explaining why you're currently sleeping on a friend's couch doesn't exactly inspire confidence in potential employers. That morning, Madison came out of her bedroom looking like she'd been crying. She sat down at the kitchen table across from my wife and dropped the bomb. "I need to tell you something." My wife looked up from her laptop, where she'd been scrolling through job listings. "What's wrong?" "I went to the clinic yesterday for testing." Madison's voice was shaking. The results came back positive. Positive for what? Chlamydia. The word hung in the air like a toxic cloud. My wife stared at her, trying to process what she'd just heard. "But that means I've been infected for who knows how long. And given my lifestyle lately." Madison's voice trailed off. My wife felt her stomach drop. She'd been living in this apartment, using the same bathroom, sometimes sharing drinks when they were both drunk. The implications were terrifying. "Have you been tested?" Madison asked. "No, I haven't been with anyone since." "Since your husband?" "Right. Well, you should probably get tested anyway, just to be safe." But that wasn't the worst part. Madison took a deep breath and delivered the real news. "I'm moving to Portland. My sister said I can stay with her until I get back on my feet." "Moving? When?" "Next week." My wife felt the floor drop out from under her. "Next week? What about the lease? What about your job?" "I already quit, and the lease is month to month. I'm giving notice today. But where am I supposed to go?" Madison couldn't look her in the eye. "I don't know. Maybe you could find your own place. Or maybe," she hesitated, "maybe you could work things out with your husband?" The irony wasn't lost on either of them. The same woman who'd spent months convincing my wife that her marriage was toxic was now suggesting she crawl back to it as a solution. "Work things out." "Madison, he divorced me. He changed the locks. He won't even take my calls." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you listened to me." There it was. The admission that came too late to matter. Madison knew she'd given terrible advice, but she was bailing before dealing with the consequences. Over the next week, my wife watched her last lifeline pack up and disappear. Madison loaded her car with whatever would fit and left everything else behind, including the mess she'd helped create in my wife's life. The apartment suddenly felt enormous and empty. My wife found herself alone with furniture that didn't belong to her, bills she couldn't afford, and the crushing realization that she'd traded a stable marriage for this. She tried calling me one last time from Madison's old number, not knowing I'd changed mine. When it went straight to a disconnected message, she finally understood how completely she'd been cut off. The eviction notice came 3 days later. Apparently, Madison hadn't paid rent in 2 months, and her sudden departure left my wife holding the bag for someone else's debt. I found out about all of this later through the gossip network that small towns thrive on. Fletcher mentioned that her attorney had withdrawn from the case, citing irreconcilable differences with the client. Apparently, she'd been pushing for a settlement that her own lawyer knew was impossible. 2 months after I'd handed her those divorce papers, she was homeless, unemployed, and abandoned by the same friend who'd convinced her to blow up her life. I signed the final divorce decree on a Tuesday afternoon in December. Fletcher handed me the papers with a satisfied smile. "Clean as a whistle," he said. "No spousal support, no property division, no ongoing obligations. She gets nothing except the debt she accumulated during the separation." I drove home to my quiet house, poured myself a bourbon, and sat in my recliner. The same recliner she used to complain was too big for our living room. The same recliner I'd almost gotten rid of to make her happy. I thought about the voicemail she'd left about missing feeling safe, about how she'd finally understood what she'd thrown away, but only after it was too late to get it back. Some people learn from their mistakes. Others become examples for people who are smart enough to pay attention. My wife had chosen to be an example. She'd listened to a friend who convinced her that marriage was a prison, freedom was a bar stool, and happiness came from acting single while someone else paid your bills. She'd chosen drama over stability, excitement over contentment, and the opinions of people who envied her life over the feelings of the man who'd built it with her. Now she was discovering what freedom actually costs when you don't have anyone to catch you when you fall. I finished my bourbon and looked around my house. Our house. My house. The house she'd once called home, but never learned to appreciate. Tomorrow I'd start thinking about what came next. Maybe I'd travel. Maybe I'd date again eventually. Maybe I'd just enjoy being a man who knows his worth and doesn't settle for people who don't. But tonight, I was content to sit in my oversized recliner in my peaceful house, enjoying the quiet satisfaction that comes from making the hard choice when it needed to be made. I'd drawn a line, and I'd held it. That was something Madison had never taught my ex-wife how to do. And now she was learning the difference between a husband and a friend the hard way. A husband builds a life with you. A friend disappears when the party's over. The party was definitely over.
Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.